man. I do what I do.
Spurling, welcome back, and we're going to have a very intriguing conversation today. White women's slave owners, female nature on display. Here's the thing: there's been a rise of Karenation. Karenators have hit the scene, and because of that, it's caused not only Black people but also all the people who are here in the United States to take a look at the role that the white women have played in the perpetuation of stereotypes and racism. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't white women who fought against it, but what we're talking about are the white women who are like the Karens, who use their social status, who use these views of white women's purity to their advantage, to take advantage of people of color, to cause white men to react in a way that causes them to become violent, thinking they're doing something that's noble, i.e. protecting white women. Basically, what I'm saying is, because of the Karen situation, because of the rise of the Karens, it's brought a new, it's caused people to have to take another look at the role that white women have traditionally played in this country now, as far as the perpetuation of racism. What I want you guys to do for me is I want you to check out Bill Burr, okay? Bill Burr is a white comedian, and he had this to say in a joke. Fair use.
Going ahead. Let's talk white women here, shall we? Let's talk white women. White women, you're amazing your accomplishments over the last few years. I got to tell you, the way white women somehow hijacked the woke movement, generals around the world should be analyzing this.
Right. So basically, he's talking about how white women have placed themselves at the head of the minority line. In other words, think about affirmative action. Affirmative action was something that was set aside, that Black Americans fought for, to help repair the effects of slavery. White women, some kind of way, figured out a way to jump ahead of that line. And the way he's coming across, it's like, yeah, how the hell did you guys do that? You know, like, I can recognize as a white man, it's not fair. And so how did you guys manage to do that? Now, this is Bill Burr, and, you know, complete disclosure, he apparently is married to a Black woman, but bottom line is he's speaking the truth. So let's listen to him.
Just to refresh your memory, the woke movement was supposed to
enslaved Africans. They weren't allowed to own land. So, you know, the only the Southerners didn't lose their land, they lost their slaves. So there were more white men, so they more than white men had an equal, if not greater, financial incentive to keep this heinous institution going. So there's the motivation. All right. Moreover, these women would use their slaves to generate outside income, which they apparently would hide, or did it in secrecy in preparation for divorce from their husbands. This is all documented stuff. These women had their slaves doing outside work, bringing the money back home to him. They were stockpiling cash, and then they would use that money to file for divorce and move away. This is what white women were doing. If this is not something that needs a red pill diagnosis or a red pill analysis, I don't know what is. Here's another thing. Black slaves performed domestic work, which would have otherwise been left to white women to perform. Along with breastfeeding her children, she could shift these duties off to her enslaved African wet nurse. So the slavery system in America directly benefited white women financially, and also having to do with their own personal time and capital. All right, you don't have to breastfeed, you don't have to clean. None of the tasks that have been designated as woman's work at that time, and at that time it was domestic work, was woman's work, they can shift that off to their slaves. So why in the hell would they want to give up slavery? These are things I want to ask you. Here's another one. White women were notorious for exploiting the bodies of their Black male slaves. They used them as sex slaves. They treated them like sexual objects and coerced them and blackmailed into sexual liaisons. And in those circumstances, where they were found out, in other words, somebody found out, they could allege sexual assault and thus rely on notions of white female purity and escape punishment. Basically, what I'm saying is these white women saw these Black, handsome, black, strong bucks as walking dildos. and they had no problem with exploiting them to get their rocks off. Remember, this was a control. Slavery was a mini fiefdom. It was a mini empire. She had total control over that. Matter of fact, she could tell you who to have sex with and who not to have sex with. White female slave owners would exercise control right down to who was allowed to have sex with whom on the plantation. And she would also take the children of the enslaved African women, deeming them inadequate mothers, and raise the children as her own, having her having the children refer to her as mother. This is documented. I know you guys are finding this. You got to be kidding this. I am not. And so this is, they didn't have control. Let's see. Think about it. You know, they didn't have control of anything else, but they had control over these things. So they exercised that control. White feminists often try to compare their oppression. So this is what I want you guys to think about. These white feminists often try to compare their oppression from the white patriarchy, to which they benefit directly from, to the oppression that blacks have endured under slavery. And that's just not, it's not acceptable. However, despite what the white feminists say, white women were not oppressed victims. They were actively engaged participants in the oppression of enslaved Africans. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to examine the behavior of white women slave owners from a red pill perspective, so as to understand the female nature and how it acted as a catalyst for this heinous institution. So if there are white men listening to me, what I want you guys to do is take notes. And the next time your woke white sister or white mother or white cousin, white girlfriend comes at you with, oh, the white male patriarchy is the reason why, I want you to hit them with this stuff. And for you black men out there and black women who are listening, the next time, you know, these so-called white woke women decide to try to escape all of the liability and say, oh no, we're victims just like you, you make sure you give them some historical context so we can put this in perspective. Remember, Karens didn't just happen. There's always been Karens there to act as sentries and to exercise, take advantage where possible. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about these white Karens who do this stuff and then, you know, throw rocks and hold their, oh, it wasn't me, it was him. It was the white male patriarchy. It wasn't me. And in actuality, they're complicit. Now, what I'm going to show you is a film put together by a young woman. Her name is Gianna Crienz, and she did this as a graduate student. And I found it on the internet, and I found it to be quite intriguing. So, you know, so we'll take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
My annotated bibliography research has been about the role of white women in the maintenance of slavery as an institution. The biggest takeaway that I have learned is that white slaveholding women felt entitled to exert a tremendous amount of control over their slaves. They played a very active role in furthering slavery for their own interests.
Fair use.
White women helped the maintenance of slavery because they reaped immense benefits from it.
They reaped immense benefits from it. Listen to it, not just financial, but other things. Keep listening.
Women were willing to participate in slavery because in many southern states, slaves were essentially the only property that a woman could independently own from her husband. Additionally, southern slave-owning women routinely sexually assaulted black men or coerced black men into relationships.
So basically, you're a slave on a plantation, and you know you can't even look a white man in the eye, and you got this young white woman basically telling you, look, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to say you raped me and they're going to kill you. So this is your choice. You can either have sex with me or or you're going to die, or you're going to be beaten within a hair of your life. And here's another thing. They have an old saying called, there's a, and these white men knew what these white women were doing. Don't think they didn't know what these white women were doing. They didn't like it, but they knew it because they knew what they were doing. They were also, taking advantage of black bodies, both men and women. I mean, I'm telling you, these white men were having sex and taking advantage of both men and women and children. They knew what they were doing. They knew what the white women were doing too. So don't allow people to play this game with you.
There's a party going on, we all looking at Dennis. Spurling and subscribe, it only take you a minute. Hit the cash app, super chat, be a penny. One is real good, but 20 more will be plenty. Blizzard King pay a visit, big blast my witness. Appreciate the love, there's black men doing business. Stand up, father and brother, lawyer is he. Hall of Fame game, he's known as Uncle D. Tell it just like B, representing for we know time is money, you learning and pay a fee. Know it's cold outside, but the podcast hot. Giving you a feeling that these others ain't got. Say it's cold outside, but the podcast hot. Giving you a feeling that these others ain't got. You know that the blizzard come through. Bundle up for the winter, know this hit. Darren Hay watch views. Hit the light, you know that the blizzard come through. Bundle up for the winter, know this hit. Darren Hay watch views. Hit the light, hit the light.
We still look at all the beautiful music that we've created. That's what's on the inside of us. We are wonderful people.